Anything here?
I think we're good. Let's test. We're good? I think we're live now. Okay. Okay. Here. Hopefully it works. Can you go on your phone? Oh, you have a phone? And see if it works. See if it's working. Can you hear? On Facebook, so you see Kelly on Facebook. All right, guys. We'll get started here shortly. Not dying? Let me see. Oh no, it's not there. It's my. We'll get started here shortly. It's not working? Is it not right? It's not live? Okay, there is one person. Okay, well, I just want to make sure that the audio is actually working. So está listo? Okay. Okay. All right. We'll get started. We'll go ahead and get started. Yeah. Okay, here? Well, I'll just talk normally. How's it going?
There's two cars blocking the garage door.
Okay.
A X3 and a Tesla.
A WX.
Yes, it's a BMW X3.
Oh, BMW X3.
I'm guessing it's back here.
It may be. Guys, we'll get started real quick. Does anyone have a BMW X3 or a Tesla by chance? Does anyone have a BMW X3 now? Or Tesla? No Teslas? Okay. Doesn't look like it. All right. BMW X3 or Tesla now? Okay. Okay, Ronnie. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Melanie, lower the music. Huh? Huh? Come on, guys. Moving close. All right, we're going to get started here shortly. All right. Okay. All right, guys. Cool. You good? The mic up? No, I guess I'll put it here just to make it sound better here. How about that? How about that? Okay. Cool. All right. Well, first off, thank you all for coming. It really means a lot to me. I know it's, I appreciate coming downtown and being able to share this experience with me. You can't further back. Okay. We're streaming live too, so I got to make sure it looks good. I appreciate it. Oh yeah, the hand. I got to be forceful when I. First off, I appreciate you all coming out. So I do appreciate you guys taking some time. Phenomenal meats. If you guys haven't had a chance to try it, I'm sure you guys have, because it's unbelievable. So if you can, we want to support small businesses, Latin-owned businesses. So we do appreciate that very much. All right. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is kind of describe a little bit about who I am first, and then we'll dive a little bit into the book, and then we're going to go ahead and kind of. So to start out. You do, but I'll go ahead and get a spiel. So in Italy, Northeast Italy. My dad's was an physician, so he stayed at the Viano Air Base in Northeast Italy, fraternal twin, and ultimately we moved around Europe. I was 5 years at Supreme NATO headquarters, moved over to high school in Southern Arizona, and then moved to industrial engineering and economics, and then got into the software development space. So I worked for a company that helped implement software systems for government agencies, and I had the privilege of working in Washington, D.C. for a couple of years, moved to Puerto Rico, and we helped implement the SURI project, which is a unified system for the island. And then I got relocated over to Louisville, and my beautiful came with me, luckily. And we're supposed to be, which we always talk about, it's like, this is supposed to be temporary. But we love Louisville, and we've really enjoyed our time here. But it turned from a 6-month project to more permanent. And then after, let's say, March of April or 2019, transitioned away from that, and then for my real estate license and got into commercial real estate shortly thereafter. So I've been with the Grantee Group, Nick, stopping by, man, and I've been with them ever since. And I've learned a lot. You know, I didn't really plan to start writing. I really am not a good writer to begin with. I come from an engineering background. My worst subject in school was always, but you know, the reason I started writing to begin with was because at the time, it was 2016, I was living in Puerto Rico, I was living in Condado, if you guys are familiar with San Juan. It's like kind of a very touristy area. My apartment was literally, maybe not that close, but you could throw a rock from my apartment to the beach. I was at a job making figures, so you figure that I had it made, but at the time I felt really confused, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and so I went through a period of research on a variety of different topics, and I started thinking, because everything was so fragmented across I would a particular topic development a book. Each book being add 10 or 15,000 to this, round it out, and then I have a playbook, proven success strategies for liberation. My second book, professional development. Fourth book was finance. So proven. It was a personal. I did that for series, and then I commercial real estate space, and I started getting the same type questions from people over and over and over again. So, you know, I was helping someone lease a commercial property, and they'd ask me the same questions, and then I'd help someone buy a commercial property, and they would ask me the same questions. And so I figured, okay, why not write a book about the fact of all these different verticals? And so that's where I started writing my first book, which was Before You Sign That Lease. The second book was Before You Buy That Building. And then this book is called Before You Sell That Building. So imagine you are a business owner, and you've owned your business for a long period of time. Now you want to sell the business and also the commercial property associated with it. Book you would need to kind of get an understanding of how to properly position your property to maximize its value over time. So as far as the book itself is concerned, I mean, obviously I won't read the book per se, but I thought I'd share a couple of key books pertaining to expectation setting on the seller side, because I feel like that's something that, you know, a lot of times is a discrepancy between when someone starts in the business and doesn't really know how to set those expectations. It can cause conflict, especially early on. So I'll talk about 3 quick things, and then we'll open up to Q&A. So to start out, unlike residential real estate tends to take a little longer to sell. So oftentimes is an expectation of, turn around relatively quickly. Property, whether something like this that's a very large property, layout, a lot longer to sell than maybe a bed, 2-bath home in a certain part of town, right? I mean, it's not the same expectation. Front end really helps kind of being that trusted advisor to the seller. Again, they're trusting you with they're probably their biggest asset. So they put on rose-colored glasses when they look at their property. They think that nothing's wrong with their property. They're owning, in order for it to off those front end and help. Hand is worth more than 2 in the bush. Start receiving some offer, we'll hold out for an offer that's going to be often telling you something. So if you start receiving some offer, all about the same, it's saying that they're the proper, and obviously have experience in the process of planning. So I've had situations in the past. Sellers they're adamant about a certain price. They don't want to accept anything else. 6 months go by, no offer. They ultimately they would have sold it for 6 months prior. So property sits on the market, get associated with it because buyers are what's wrong with the property. So just putting yourself in those positions and understanding that. Obviously, we can talk about, in this book we talk about like different strategies you can employ to deferred. I mean, there's deferred sales trust. There's a lot of different strategies you can to right sale. And I just go.
You were in software. Why did you jump into real estate?
Computers a week of a fun time. Consulting side, because the whole software life cycle. Client, testing things. The development phase was fine. Just writing software and % testing it. Be sitting out 100 different scenarios, all the different things that could go wrong. For a period of time, and I was there for 5. Oh my gosh! Because when you open up people, think about all the different possible scenarios that can occur, something's going to break. Sometimes what you have to do is, and then just stuff starts breaking. To kind of try to figure out what's going on. And then hopefully you get better, but for side after time didn't appeal to me anymore.
So
Yeah.
you do commercial, what kind of commercial you like? Multiple units or business?
Most. Of businesses. I represent different franchises. Like I'm working with a local smoothie gyms. I've done deals with property. You get to deal with shopping center owners and different things you can get into on the retail side. And retail's been very resilient even through COVID. So so I think that would be a bad spot after having through what they've been very, very strong.
On a building and have for, say, 15 years rather than 30, and I want to sell or lease, like what do you tell people if they're in between, like the pros and cons of selling and leasing their building?
Yeah, so, selling or part, tell people is if you're in a position where you're trying to determine whether to lease or sell, you got to understand your business. So if your business is one that requires that you project to have explosive growth, you don't want to buy, because you buy something and then 2 years later you're not going to be able to use it. So if you're in an industry where you can see yourself being in a place for a period of time, it almost makes most of the time it makes sense to buy, because then you can build up the equity over time. But there's benefits. Go ahead.
I guess I meant like as the building owner, if I closed my bakery and I didn't know if I wanted to sell the business or lease it out.
Yeah. So if you were the building owner and you wanted to,
Or just sell it.
do you want to deal with? You've got to sit down and determine that. And not to say you can't hire another firm to do the property management side, but owning a building, I mean, it's you got maintenance, you've got communication with tenants, you've got a lot of paperwork. I mean, I own a small fourplex, and Melanie and I always complained about it. It's like, oh my gosh, like something else is happening over there that I got to deal with. It's just part of being an owner of property. It's not as simple as mailbox money. So it depends on whether or not you really want to deal with that. And then there's situations where you can buy property that's owned by, or that's a triple net, absolute triple net lease, like Walgreens owns it, and they're literally doing everything. That is the closest thing you can get to quote unquote mailbox money, but there could potentially be risk there, because if they decide to leave over time, like what do you do with that 12,000 square foot retail space? It's a little harder to manage. So, oh, sorry.
Explain what triple net is.
Yeah, so triple net in commercial real estate involves you're paying taxes, insurance, and then general maintenance on the property. So oftentimes you'll get quoted a rate. So if let's say you're renting a space for $15 a square foot, they'll tell you triple net expenses are like $3 or $4 a square foot. So that's you pay on top of your rent to cover all the taxes, insurance, and general maintenance. And sometimes in shopping centers it's called common area maintenance. So that incorporates the trash pickup, that incorporates cleaning the parking lot, that incorporates all the things that are shared within for the other tenants within the center. So there's different ways to structure it, but those are the two most common. Oh, sorry.
Why did you choose commercial over residential?
Yeah, so why did I choose commercial over residential? I did a lot of research, and I think mainly my mom was a pretty successful residential agent in Arizona, and the story she was telling me I just didn't like, having to deal with things, and and not to say that all buyers or sellers are the same way, but the discussions that she was having tended to lean more in a direction of how I felt about a certain thing. So I don't like the wall color, so I may or may not want to buy the house. Whereas with the way I've always thought is, how can we change things so that it actually works? And so, not to say that always happens in commercial real estate. That's kind of a misnomer. Everyone thinks that, commercial people are all about the numbers. It's like, yeah, but there's also a lot of egos involved. There's also a lot of, different emotions involved that may or may not be like, oh yeah, I feel that this doesn't work. Again, decision making is based on emotions. It's about what your comfort level is, because if you're very risk averse, you're going to say, oh, I don't want to necessarily buy this property at this return, but there's the same other person who's willing to accept the less return because their risk profile is higher. So that's based on, I think it's kind of a misnomer, but that's the reason why, is that I just didn't necessarily, I wanted to have business conversations. I didn't necessarily want to have, this, you could see yourself living here, or whatever else. So.
Got a question. So I know a lot of people that made the transition to move into real estate. So do you find that all your previous jobs and studies that you had for software and everything else, does it help you, or was it a waste of time, or do you find it helpful right now that you're a commercial real estate?
Yeah, I think any experience you have previously you can draw from. So for me, I think the best thing I I think one of the best things of my previous job is the consulting side. So I'm really good in situations where it's high pressure. We need to come to a determination. I can explain something in a way that people can all get on the same page on. And that's all based on my previous experience. From technology, I think being able to incorporate all these different mediums, like, obviously we're streaming live on all these different platforms. I'm very good when it comes to integrating software into my business. So that sort of stuff I probably wouldn't have had if I not done what I did before. Because, again, you build synapses in your brain when you start doing stuff like this so that it becomes a lot easier for you to actually. Outside of that, I had a lot of experience in a catering company in college. So I cooked a lot of food and tried to, start a business and all other stuff. So I've always been somewhat entrepreneurial, and I leverage those experiences even to this day. So.
You mentioned earlier that retail was hot at the moment, or in the current market, is there any areas, commercial real estate that are not doing well?
Yeah, so there are any areas of commercial real estate that are not doing well. Yeah, office is probably the biggest one. Especially central business district office. And that's across the nation. It's not just necessarily here. So a lot of these large office towers, they're having a lot of issues. And it's going to only compound over the next several years because the way commercial loans are structured is that they're usually on 5-year or 7-year terms. They're fixed terms. They're not 30-year fixed rate mortgages. So you're going to have a lot of banks who reevaluate their books and say, okay, well, this asset's not performing the same way as it was, and you're going to probably start seeing some notes being called due. Or you may require them to say, hey, if you want us to renew this note, you're going to have to put in another 10% of what the building value is to cover the spread. So I think there's going to be more compounding there. I think multifamily is iffy because there's been a lot of construction of multifamily, and there's been a lot of optimism in multifamily, even though, the return, people are just buying stuff at absurd cap rates just because that was the hot commodity at the time. And insurance prices are going up, and so that's going to obviously affect the return profiles going forward. So
for your clients, what do you prefer lender to invest on commercial that you can dive into?
Well, Jenny's here. I've referred her business before. I've referred, there's a lot of different commercial lenders, and each of them have different appetites. That's one of the cool things about commercial is that one bank may not want to do retail, but another one, like retail, some restaurants. There's other banks out there that love restaurants for whatever reason, right? They just have different profiles as far as what they're wanting to do. So, oftentimes when I start working with someone, I'll say, okay, what's your business? Like, where are you at in the life cycle of your business? And then based on what they tell me, I could be like, okay, talk to this lender because they're probably more likely to really want to pursue, that opportunity. So, yeah. So always having a list of 6 or 7 to be able to refer is always beneficial.
So you and I spoke before and kind of talked about the ramp up. Real estate, it's a bit of a slower grind.
Mm-hmm.
After being in the business for 4 years, what would you tell Ruff, 4 years ago that would have kind of cut through some of the fat and helped you gain traction quicker?
That's a great question. So the question, just for those of you guys who listen on live, it's what would I have told myself when I first started that would have enabled me to kind of ramp up a little bit quicker? A lot of it is just learning, man. I don't know, especially during COVID, we were all pretty isolated. So I was at home pretty much all day. You weren't really learning a lot. And I was trying to stuff online, but it really wasn't available. And so that's why I started the YouTube channel, all that stuff. So I could kind of teach people online how to do all this stuff. So if I had all that when I first did, I think it would have shrunk the timeline like crazy. Along with that, it's just the mental health piece is talked about a lot, but in reality, it's when you go from nothing. I think I had a draw, luckily, thank God, which helped a lot. But if I have a draw, and a draw, what it is essentially you draw on future commitments. So over you close deals, and so I was on the draw for I think 18 months or so. But if I didn't have that draw, I made $13,000 my first year. So imagine, it's a terrifying situation. So that piece is also something. And obviously, when it comes to real estate in general, the results don't happen right away. You can put 100 hours of work into something and the last minute. So emotional regulation becomes really important. So those are the 2 pieces of advice I'd share probably.
Are you able to share a story from a lucrative deal that you got through?
A lucrative deal am I able to share a story of a lucrative deal I got through? Yeah. So Nick knows this. I was Payless shoe store over there. We all that, and now they're going to complicated deal involved. You know, a stakeholder to talk to the Target real estate department. We had to talk to the Mayo real estate department. We had to involve the center, which was just so documents to sift through, and we had to coordinate with the lender, make sure we removed. So it was just long. Is just hurry up and wait. So you have to contend with all the emotions of everyone involved. And it's moving faster. It's like, that's just the years of commercial real estate. It just takes a long time to get stuff done. So that were nice as well. Kind of analyze all the different what the viability of them. You look at all the leases and say, okay, what's the likelihood of them being able to renew these leases? So it's a lot of, that's why so the book is actually about commercial real estate, becoming a new commercial real estate agent ramped up. So that I've already started writing that book. So hopefully by next year it'll be released, and then I'll probably create a course around it as well that'll just help people kind of, all the stuff you need to know. Talked about in some of these books, but then it'll also talk about things like marketing strategies. It'll talk about technologies you can leverage. It'll talk about, how do you build the networks, starting up meetups. I've been a meetup for a long time to kind of leverage that network. YouTube channel. There's so many different mediums you can explore, and you don't have to do them all, but at least it gives you an opportunity to kind of check out a variety of them and see which ones work for you. So that's the next book that I'm going to write. And there's going to be a series. At some point, I'll write a book on development once we get a few more under our belt. So, cool.
Did you sell any residential?
I didn't actually, no. And interestingly enough, when we bought our house in J-Town, we had one of our friends represent us. So, yeah. Yeah.
Why did you decide to do residential?
I am not.
So later.
So another question, you don't need the basics of residential to jump into commercial.
Question is the basics of residential to jump into commercial. No. There's almost no there definitely is correlation. Don't get me wrong. There's definitely title issues that are stuff. So the actual mechanics, when it comes to the actual understanding of all the different processes, they're built different. Like seller's disclosures, for example, that's required in residential real estate. Buyer beware. So I have to figure out this property, and there's a lot to consider when you're looking at the investments. There's zoning issues. They're like business. You need, there's entitlement issues. Rules and regulations you can so the moving real estate that aren't necessarily applicable in residential real estate agents can't. Any other? Cool. All right. Well, thanks, guys. We'll just be hanging out. Networking and grabbing some grub. Please, if you can, review for Albio Nella on their Google. I'm sure they would greatly appreciate it. So, Oh, well, I'm sorry. So, Cured Restaurant. It's Albio Nella is the. Yes. I had to specify. Cool. Well, thanks. Yeah. Pause that. Thanks.